Hello and welcome to Japan Expert Insights and our Business Insights room. Every Thursday, Team Sullivan and I, Maya Matsuoka, lead a discussion looking for insights, developments, and new opportunities for the business in Japan. In this podcast, we welcome comments, questions, and opinions. So if you haven't done so yet, join us next time. In the meantime, you can find us at japanexpertinsights.com and our YouTube channel, where we upload all the conversations on Japanese politics, business insights, and the role of Japan in the Indo-Pacific region.
Okay, so it's 8 o'clock, 2 minutes past 8 actually, and today we've got Mark Salmon. You already know him from our previous rooms, and I believe that you know him mostly because of the Kanpai Planet, the videos he makes about Japanese drinks like Japanese sake, Japanese whiskey, or non-alcoholic drinks, shochu as well. But today we're going to talk about a different thing, and that is the thing which actually probably you knew about Mac before the pandemic. So Mac is the founder of Maction Planet, and we're going to hear the story of Maction Planet, and Mac is also willing to share some tips and insights with us, which he has never shared before. So without any further ado, Mac, it's your turn. The floor is yours, and let us hear what you can tell us about Maction Planet and the story of. I would say company, but it's probably first it was a project, right?
Yeah, that's a good way of expressing it, actually. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's always an honor to be invited back into this clubhouse room to talk and share some of my experiences. And if at any point anybody has any questions, then you know what to do, the metaphorical raising of the hand, and I'll try to answer them. As Maya has introduced, although over the last year I've probably been a little bit more public and prolific for some of the drinks related content I've made on this platform, Kanpai Planet, which I started about a year ago. I actually, once upon a time, pre-pandemic, worked in travel. So I was a tour guide, and that all began formally at the start of 2017. So my background in Japan has been in the finance industry. I worked in insurance for a year and then investment banking for about 9 years. And always I've wanted to start my own company. I'm sure all of you have this experience where, we all talk to a lot of people, but certain sentences and things kind of stick in our mind and they can be quite formative. And you never quite know what those things are going to be. And, maybe when I was 23, working in my first company, which was an insurance company in the UK, just north of London, a colleague who wasn't that much older than me was leaving. And I said to him, why? And he said, I always thought that I would have at least 3 careers. So in his mind, he had done his time, within insurance as an actuary, and now he was going to move on to do some consulting work. And that concept has always been in my mind. So then over time, it's kind of had a little bit more validation in the external media. For example, there's a famous Japanese book about the 100-year life, which basically suggests that you can all have a different adventure, at least every decade, if not more often. So, setting up my own business has always been on my radar. And so that's what I did. After brainstorming and thinking, what could I do? I kept coming back to travel. And travel is something that's very close to my heart. I mean, as of current count, I've visited 108 countries and all 7 continents. So where I thought an interesting opportunity lay in Japan with regard to travel was within the guiding industry. And there are a few things. If you start to think about setting up a tour business or a guiding business, and there's probably a few things that you need to consider. And one of them is the competitive landscape, which is basically what you should consider when you set up any business in any industry. And so I looked across that. And one thing that I noticed was that you had a lot of experienced operators, so increasingly more and more, you have this business where there are people operating very, very compartmentalized, like I said, experiences, right? 3 hours food tour here or a 2-hour tea ceremony here. And I've never been such a massive fan of that compartmentalization really in life. I've always thought that, life is a pretty holistic experience, where knowledge kind of overlaps And the only way to really understand things is to be as interested in as many different things as possible. So that was what I thought about when I looked at the experience operators. And the next one was direct guiding, right? And the industry in Japan tends to be focused around guides which are typically people who are in their 50s, whose children have now gone to university, and they're now looking for another adventure. So back then, in order to be a licensed guide, you needed to take an exam. And these people go and sit this exam, and then they sign up with an agency. And then, when you turn up to your hotel concierge desk and say, today, in a few hours' time, or tomorrow, if you want to give them some notice, I want a guide. They call up an agency, and off you go with this guide to do your allotted 4, 6, 8 hours around Tokyo. So I looked at this and I thought, well, where can I operate within this landscape? The other thing, of course, that you absolutely should consider when you start any business is technological impact, right? And threats from tech. So for a long time, there's been this narrative around a lot of industries that tech is going to kill all of this. But it's funny. I was reading an article yesterday, which was about checkouts. Self checkout machines, right? Which may seem a bit of a stretch and a leap. Why am I bringing that analogy here? But it basically talked about how we were on this inexorable march to a world of self checkout. However, nobody likes them, right? I hate them. And I'm sure I speak for many people on this call when I say that they're terrible, right? I'm happy to pay, I'm happy for supermarkets to price in whatever it costs to actually have a human being, scan my goods, right? So people like the personal touch. And so you can have tech, and tech has been great for travel. It means that you could basically, be in London walking around, get inspired by visiting the Japan Center and immediately, from your phone, book your flights to Japan, which can be leaving in 4 hours' time, right? I mean, it's unbelievable what that's done. But I also didn't like the narrative that, tech was going to kill personalized travel, that, why would you ever need a guide, for example, if, when you wanted to know when Sensoji was built, you could just Google it. So all of these things were playing into my head. So I thought, well, how can I combat that? How can I provide something that's competitive versus the existing guiding landscape? How can I provide something that's competitive versus this concept of compartmentalized experiences? And how can I provide something that, can't be disintermediated by the tech? Because the thing, and I hope this provides some inspiration for those of you who are listening, who are kind of in a similar line of work, or solopreneurs, is that what tech can never do is that it can't disintermediate you personally. So these were kind of the thoughts going on in my head. So clearly, to counteract all of those, number one, you need to build a very, very strong personal brand, right? Which tells you why the company's called Match and Planet. I mean, it's not the greatest name for search engine optimization. It doesn't tell you that what I do, and it doesn't tell you that I operate in Tokyo, in Japan. But it seems to have done the job in terms of personal branding and also standing out. When people are scrolling down TripAdvisor and they see a lot of companies with names like, Japan Super Travel or Tokyo Friendly Tours, then, they're like, who the hell is this Match and Planet that, it has a lot of nice things written about him. So that seems to have worked. But yeah, personal branding is absolutely crucial. And I would say it's absolutely crucial in pretty much any business, including if you work for the man, something I didn't really understand when I was doing just that. Then the second one is, of course, that brand needs to be built on, something credible, a truly unique offering. So I never claim to be an expert at absolutely everything. For an expert, let's say experts are like 10 out of 10, people who have, studied in university level depth a particular issue, be it, whatever that might be, a history of that Edo period, or they're studied to be a fifth generation tea master, although, it's tough to study to be a fifth generation tea master. I guess some genetics and some provenance of lineage have to play into that. So anyway, I'm interested. I mean, this is not something that ever started because of Match and Planet. I tend to be somebody who's very interested in a number of different areas. I've always hated being boxed into, when I was doing maths and physics, you see a lot of the optional at university, but the optional credits that I did were in areas of language or art, right? When I was training to be an actuary, I did a French AS on the side in my spare time at the local college, right? So I've never wanted to be pigeonholed into, oh, you're a scientist, or you're interested in art, or you're interested in culture, or you're interested in sport. It's absolutely authentic to, being Mac, as it were, that I'm interested in pretty much everything. And I've been I've a combination of maybe genetics and training. I have a good memory, and I like to accumulate information, and I like to share that information. So all of those things played out into this kind of offering where I wanted to say, okay, instead of going and having this compartmentalized 2-hour ramen tour, well, there are about 10,000 ramen shops in Tokyo, and as of current count, I've visited about 1,800 of them. So am I a ramen expert? Am I writing regularly for ramen magazines and that? No, but I'm pretty confident that there are a few human beings who have visited the number of ramen shops that I have. Oh, you can go and sit with somebody at a baseball game, right? There are a few people who operate baseball tours, and basically the offering there is that they procure your tickets for you, which until recently was very hard to do in a language other than Japanese. Well, I thought, well, actually, I go to 30 games a year at Meiji Jingu Stadium, and so I am, for my sins, a diehard Tokyo Yakult Swallows fan. And I have a lot of spare shirts, and I have a lot of spare caps, and I have a lot of spare mini umbrellas. If any of you have been to Jingu, you know that one of the trademarks of the Swallows is waving our umbrellas around during the 7th innings and on the rare occasions that we score a run. Although we did win the Japan Series last year, and we are top of the table at the moment by a long margin. So this is really strange as a Swallows fan to be in a position of success. So this is why I've taken a disproportionate amount of time of this call talking about the Yakult Swallows. Anyway, so be able to provide that for people, an authentic experience where you're sitting with real fans, my group, my family at Jingu, and you're getting that level of experience, not just somebody who's basically paid to take you to the game, and to just talk with a modicum of knowledge, somebody with real passion and real authenticity, and then to apply that to other areas, art, I wrote, I should say, before kind of their model change, regularly for Tokyo Art Beat and on my own blog and many other publications about art in the city. So again, so to have somebody with kind of interest across all of these areas, manga and rugby and football and Japanese music and Japanese history and whatnot, and then to combine them all. So to say, okay, well, instead of having these discrete experiences, why don't you just book me for anything from 8 to 20 hours on a particular day? And again, that's another form of uniqueness there, right? There aren't many guys who are willing to be with you until 3 a.m. should you want it. So to basically say, okay, why don't we take all of these discrete things and combine them together? So I started going out with that, basically. I'm here to basically, make sure you guys really are on holiday. And I know the stuff that you don't even know to Google about. That's the thing, right? So you can Google, for example, top 5 whiskey bars in Tokyo, and I can tell you who's on that list. But my job is to take you to the top 5 whiskey bars in Tokyo, which are not on the top 5 whiskey bars list. As I did more and more research as well, this might be of interest to some of you, I found, in fact, sorry, I am going to spend a little bit of time talking about this, right? So basically, 2 years ago, I decided to set up a Tokyo content website to occupy my time during the pandemic. It didn't really go anywhere, but I would see what the competition was when I was trying to write things like a Shibuya area guide. And what I genuinely found, long story short, is that there's an insane amount of plagiarism online. I can almost pinpoint the exact original Shibuya area guide that had been written on, say, Japan Guide, and to be able to prove kind of almost forensically that these other articles that existed on other websites, which I won't name, had been plagiarized from that kind of original source. And you can tell that because if that original source contains an error, it's amazing how much those errors then get promulgated online, right? There's some incorrect piece of information about when a shrine was founded, or shops that used to exist but now don't exist, and closed down in 2015. Well, you've got a new article written in 2020 that still makes reference to that. So Yeah, that and again that sort of adds a little bit to the unique offering kind of angle that I talked about as well, because I'm pounding the streets every single day, right? So I mean, I'm able to go to Skiji and sense the shift in dynamic. Why is this shop suddenly got a long line here? Well, actually, last week this particular shop was featured on Korean television, and that's now why we've got a long line at this shop. Okay, I used to really love it, but I don't want to waste my guests' time. There's no need for them to pay for me to line up with them for an hour to get into somewhere where the food is equally good at this place with no line. It's just that it's never been featured in a French guidebook or on Japanese or Korean television. So um, anyway, I'll stop there, Maya. I could go on, but I'll stop there for now, just to give everybody pause to catch their breath a little bit on what I've covered so far. But those were the things in my mind when I was in the process of creating the offering that Match and Planet would provide.
Thank you, Mark. If I can summarize now, well, you said that it's about well, you need to build a strong personal brand, be curious, and also well, do the guiding or whatever you choose to do with passion and authenticity. So these 3 points are really amazing. Well, they're very strong and very important to me. And yesterday on LinkedIn, I also wrote that I have nothing but admiration for you, because I used to be a guide too before I came to Japan. And I can relate to these points, and especially how you actually embrace your customers, your guests, and make them part of your family. So this is amazing to me. But I have a question to you. So I have heard a lot of people say, "Oh well, we have so many guidebooks nowadays, and we have the internet and so on and so on. So we hardly ever need a guide, to show us around the city, a new place." So what do you tell them? I think that you partially answered that question by saying that well, you can give your guests let's say a list of whiskey bars in Tokyo that are not on the lists, the ranking lists. But in addition to that, what else? Is there anything else you can just tell them? Why should they hire a guide?
In that sense, Maya, it's a great question, actually. I'm a terrible marketer, because one of the first things I say, and it's kind of all linked to that, the passion I have for this place. If anybody who visits my website straight away, which is sort of linked in the room right now, will see that I frequently refer to Tokyo as the world's greatest metropolis. And the first thing I say whenever people ask me questions that are similar to what Maya said is, "Oh, absolutely! Like, first of all, don't worry about hiring me. Just by physically setting foot within the boundaries of Tokyo Prefecture, you are going to improve your life. It is the greatest city on earth." I say that having not visited the entire planet, but having visited 108 countries and many of the world's major cities, the majority of the world's major cities, multiple times. So, just being here is going to be great. Now, it is the largest metropolis on earth. It is the greatest metropolis on earth. You're going to want to maximize your time here. And you can indeed Google a lot. You can buy your guidebooks. Like I said, those information sources, believe me when I say this, they lead to a herd effect. And I see it with my own eyes. I'm reminded of 2 guests who traveled with me, amazing people, in 2018, and they asked me to take them to this secret bar, which I actually won't name because it's terrible, right? It's like the only place in the whole of Tokyo, I think, that has like majority 1-star reviews on TripAdvisor. But somebody had written about it in the New York Times. Anyway, I'm jumping ahead, actually, because that was the point. I said, "Oh, how did you find out about this secret bar?" I don't know if any of you have looked up the word secret in the dictionary recently, but it tends to imply that nobody knows, it's something that is kind of fairly under wraps. And the gentleman replied, "Oh, the New York Times." And I couldn't help but, spout out, "Well, I'm not quite sure how it's a secret then." That would be how I would sell myself, Maya, in a sense, right? It would be exactly that angle, that you don't know what you don't know. And because so much of this information, I know this is incredible to say. For me, it smacks like, it smacks of inauthenticity. But so many of the information out there is not even written by people who are based in Japan, let alone Tokyo, right? So,
Right. Yeah.
that's it. Like people are being sat, and I know this having been part of the process, at least luckily based in Tokyo. But even on, for example, the JNTO website, the Japan National Tourism Organization, people are being commissioned to write articles, and those people are not based in Japan and have not visited the sites that they are writing about, and therefore their research is coming from other places online, and therefore you get this compounding effect where it is the same low level of information, right? And that's that. And then the second thing really ties back into that personal brand aspect. When you go to your concierge desk and you say, I want a guide, then you're going to get a guide, and they will undoubtedly be very professional, and they're going to take you to the places that you requested, or that they think give an indicative review of Tokyo, or whatever it is that they've been told to do, often a very set itinerary, right? And that's well and good, but one of the things that I think is important for people, like I said, it's almost this pushback against the commoditized world, is that when you contact info@matchandplanet.com, then I respond to those emails, and then when you book, you're going to get me. I should say, in the interest of completeness, unless I'm already booked, at which case, and we'll come on to that in the growth of the business in future, but you will get me. And then afterwards, after service, when you're in Kyoto and you have my phone number, and as has happened last week, because I guided again for the first time in 28 months, you want to know what ramen shop you should visit in Kyoto because it's raining and you're in the mood for ramen. I'm there replying to you within 20 seconds, telling you to jump in a cab and go to Goke, in Ichijoji. You absolutely will not regret it. And then, you're getting a complete service, and you're basically paying for that complete service. And very, very few people, offer that.
Yeah, that's another fascinating side of what you do, because other companies, I have noticed that big companies here in Japan, they have been talking about before and after, before experience and after experience service, right? So actually, they talk about the service before their guests come to Japan, and then the service after their guests leave Japan. But there has been very little personalization of those services, actually. And,
right.
Yes. So I think that, of course, that, as you said, that ties to your personal brand very strongly and in a very good way. But I don't know, Mac, have you ever thought of writing, a textbook about guiding here in Japan, or even in general?
It's something that's been mentioned to me a few times. I think there's probably two ways I can take it. There's kind of a more technical thing, which would maybe be along the lines of the guide training. Like I've been hired, I've been asked to do some guide training, right, around the country at times, and that's where I break things down, and I talk about the different aspects and different facets and make a good guide, flexibility, credibility, knowledge, et cetera, right? And then there's maybe a confessions of a guide. There's a few sordid stories about my experience guiding, and so yeah, maybe one day I could write something either with my own name on it, or maybe, if it's the latter one, anonymously, about some of the fun things and the interesting stories and that I've encountered.
Yeah, you usually get quite a few of those interesting stories while guiding, don't you?
Well, you do. I mean, you're there, and believe me when I say this, it wouldn't just be about my guests. It would also be about me. I'm hopefully self-aware enough, which I think is actually a good quality that you need as a guide, to be able to write about the times where maybe I was. Of course, you're always going to get 100% service with Match and Planet, where maybe I gave 100 and 150 is equally entertaining as the times that it was maybe 95, or when or where I've had to handle interesting situations, as well as perhaps the entertainment and the fun times that my guests have provided as well.
Yeah, and that's when we actually learn.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it's a very personal, it's a very intimate job, because you're literally with these people, like I said, for a minimum of 8 hours a day, if not longer. You're dining. You're meeting them for the first time, and then you're doing things that we do with our best friends, right? You're visiting exciting places, and you're on holiday. You're not on holiday with them. Is maybe the wrong way to do it. You're on you're on their holiday, right? You're dining with them. You're dropping them off in their hotel. They're like, "Oh, come up to our hotel room." You're drinking with them. You're potentially partying with them. You're going to sporting events with them. All things that you do with friends and family. So yeah, there's a people aspect. Um, that human nature aspect is absolutely a very, very important part of guiding. There are things that you can do to gain experience and that you do learn on the job. I also think that it is the part that is the most difficult to teach. You know how there are all these cliches. You often see them on LinkedIn, which I know a lot of you guys are on, so you'll all agree with me. Like, you can train knowledge, but you can never train attitude, right? Well, yes, you can. If the person has a good memory, you can train them to remember the height of the sky tree, right? And you can even teach them the story of how 634 is Musashi in Tokyo, and you can tell them that Musashi, the Musashi Plain, one of sort of the old names for Tokyo. Also, certain samurai, very famous samurai. You can also, if then you really know your stuff, you can tell them, well, actually, the sky tree is built on Tobu land, and the head of Tobu went to Musashi High School, I think, or Musashi University. So
Yes.
you can say, okay, so that's kind of the third level knowledge, right? But to then make that entertaining, to know when to drop that story in, to be able to know when, maybe these people really are not interested at all in kind of the Japanese word numerology, right? That we have here, or to know how to divert the story, to know how to then connect that to why the building in Ueno is called 3153. Well, it's Sai-Go-san, right? And it's next to the Saigo Takamori statue. You know what I mean? Anyway, I'm going on because I've only guided very few times in the last 28 months, and so I'm clearly eager to do it again. So all of you on this call are basically getting an insight into the guiding experience. But
I can feel the passion in you and the impatience also to get once again to get on the road with guests. So that's really contagious. And I remember when I was guiding, I can relate to that because since that time I have always thought that it's really so. It feels good to see people who are so passionate about their job and not just know their stuff, but also enjoy actually doing the job with integrity and authenticity. And for me, it has been really something very, very special. Of course, it comes to guiding, when people guide their guests around new places and so on. But also, it is very nice to see people in other fields who enjoy doing what they're doing, because then actually the customers, they feel that passion and they get in, well, without realizing that, they get involved, engaged, and they become ambassadors as well.
I mean, you're absolutely right. It definitely absolutely helps to do something that you enjoy. And I know the Ikigai concept, which I'm sure many people here will be familiar with, again, if not from some LinkedIn graphics, and then people saying, oh, this is the westernized version of Ikigai. And, if you go back to its authentic roots, and it's very different. But however you want to define it, it's definitely a nice way of encompassing this concept of the intersection of things that you're passionate about, things that you're good at, and things that will help you, maybe on top of that, pay the rent, right? And to actually be able to operate within that intersection of those circles on that Venn diagram, it's an honor. And it's also something I don't take for granted. The other thing I want to talk about, maybe from the business side of Match and Planet, and I've not really spoken a lot about this before. So, I think it is something that's sort of not spoken about too much, which is the financial side of things. And especially when you're a solopreneur, it's something that people are not comfortable talking about. But it's something, like I said, that I've never really shared before, and I want to share it in this room because whenever I come on here, I always want to add a lot of value to the amazing people who join us every morning. So obviously you start guiding, and your proposition is pretty obvious. You're going to book me, and you start to think, well, what can be your hourly rate? And I looked around and I saw what was pretty common in the industry, and which tended to be kind of around actually 3,000 to 4,000 yen per hour. And that was where I originally started. I remember being on a call. I remember like one of my first tours, the guy wanted to speak to me before he hired me. And I remember being at a friend's barbecue on their balcony and literally like freezing up, thinking, oh my God, should I charge 3,200 yen per hour, or should I charge 3,500 yen per hour? And then, people started to write nice things on TripAdvisor. And when I say nice things, if you go to the Match and Planet TripAdvisor listing right now, you'll find 292 reviews, and 291 of them are 5-star. And unfortunately, the one non-5-star review actually is for another guide who was guiding, on behalf of my business. So anyway, people have written these very powerful, very, very lovely things. So, I was able to start to raise my rates. And then I realized something which it maybe doesn't apply in every business, but is a good framework for thinking about things, is that things should either be free or they should be premium, right? And when you're operating in the middle, you're doing neither one thing nor the other, So, neither is it a hobby that you kind of are like a little bit happy to get paid a bit for. You should, if you're at that level, then you should probably just guide for free and then tell people that if they're happy with the service, that they can tip you whatever they want, right? Or you should really try to be the absolute best that you can be in the business, right? You should make it your life. I mean, this really does actually apply to the pandemic period as well. But certainly pre the pandemic, I wasn't doing a lot in my life apart from either guiding or replying to emails and kind of the administration around running my business, or just trying to make myself a better guide for that next guest, checking out new, dare I say it, ramen shops, right? Visiting more art museums, learning more about some aspect of the culture that maybe I felt I wasn't strong enough about. I wanted to turn guiding from being this sort of commoditized thing, you just turn up to the agency and then you get a guide, into a profession. And when you're in a profession, then there's a stratification, right? When you go for a lawyer, right? When you need to pick a lawyer, there are $100 lawyers an hour and there are $10,000 an hour lawyers, right? When you go for medical care in some parts of the world, there's a X dollars an hour doctor and there's a 10X dollars an hour doctor. And I wanted to be at the upper end, but in order to justify that, you need to have an offering which makes people happy to, basically part with their resources to fund that offering, to basically pay, right? And that then, to tie that back into Maya, into what you said, if you have any kind of self-awareness, if you have any appreciation yourself for your own money, then it puts this very positive pressure on yourself. You go, well, actually, these guys are paying me, right? And I cannot waste their time. I respect that they have given me some of their hard-earned cash in order to give them the best possible service. And that's very much what I always try to do.
Hi guys, I'm sorry. Hi Max, thank you. Because hi Max, you have like one question in on the chat, and I have two questions. When you have a moment, thanks. Should I read the question, or you will access that?
Yuka, thank you so much. I've just clicked into the chat. And okay. I've seen a very good question from Yoko.
Right.
So this, I guess, applies to COVID measures. So during the pandemic, I did some guiding of residents during the period. So this is people who actually live in Japan. And then recently, a couple of weeks ago, I guided one group of, or a couple of former guests who were here on business visas, right? And the COVID measures are really exactly how anybody should be operating in Japan. So wearing masks, especially indoors, and making sure that the guests as well are wearing masks as well. Hand sanitization measures, although, the scientists can debate the efficacy of that. But anyway, it's what we do here, and it's clearly played a part. Temperature checks in advance of the tour, emails back and forth, constantly monitoring both my health condition, but also that of the guests as well. And then even after the tour as well, keeping in touch with the guests to make sure that everybody's still safe and sound after that. So basically all of those measures, which for me are absolutely common sense. Plus, there are some environments that, were you to ask me to guide you tomorrow, I wouldn't feel comfortable taking you to versus, say, pre-pandemic, right? That's places where maybe bars, for example, where I'm not comfortable in the ventilation that's there, which, I mean, it's an airborne virus, so clearly ventilation is the number one consideration. Where I'm not comfortable with that, then, we're not going to be doing that, and we're going to be grabbing beer, a craft beer at a craft beer bar, which has a terrace or an outdoor seating area where we can get 100% ventilation. So I hope that answers your question.
Oh, I think you did. Maya, so is it okay if I ask two questions?
Sure.
Thanks. Thank you. While I was listening to you, and then your passion for ramen is absolutely contagious. But so I can tell you have your brand, personal brand. But so my first question is, how do you promote that? Because you just mentioned that you get a lot of good comments on TripAdvisors or maybe other travel sites. Is that the people tend to find you there? Because, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, right? So
Yeah, right. No, that's it.
you had to let the people know. And then let me just throw in the second. Oh, do you want to go one question at a time? Or maybe, yeah, okay, please, yeah, all right. People just
Let's do
yeah.
like translation. It's always good to do one question at a time. It's my personal preference, but it is because the reason I butted in just then is because it's an excellent question, right? It's an excellent question, right? You have this offering, you know what I mean? You've spent ages, theorizing about it. You've read the business books, or at least, the blurbs of the business books, which no disrespect to business book writers, but it's often, the title will tell you everything that you need to know. You've got it all, right? And then you're sitting there. I remember I launched my website on the 20th of February 2017. And I sat there. For you, it's a huge event. My friends who are authors liken it in the same way. They release a book that they've written, right? These 80,000 words. It's taken them 2 years, and then they release it, and it's a massive anticlimax. And then on the 11th of March, of course, an important date for all of us living in Japan, 2017, I received my first incoming query, and that was I couldn't believe it, right? So how do people find out about what I do? I guess number one is one thing I was very clear on is with my guests is, you have to write a review. And I settled on TripAdvisor as being the home for those reviews. Now, TripAdvisor's algorithm has changed over time. Once upon a time, when I started, it was a very easy way to see the top ranked tours in Tokyo. Now, they're really much more about selling tours that list with them through Viator, which is their aggregator arm, which I've never listed on. I've never listed my tours on any kind of aggregator platform. So anyway, people would find me through that. Then you start, of course, to build up a bank of guests, and then their friends find you through their word of mouth. I mean, I don't need to explain how important word of mouth is to anybody on this call. It is a crucial to any business, especially an entrepreneur or a solopreneur. And then through the combination of those two things, word of mouth and people writing things online, people start to find you, right? So some sort of high-end luxury, very bespoke agencies, they find you, they're interested in what you do, they give you a chance, and if their guests say nice things about you, then you become a de facto guide for them, because when people are running a business, people want the path of least resistance. So if you're doing a consistently good job for their guests, and sort of what I call an outsized job, or a 12 out of 10 job, then people are going to, it's going to be easy for them to say, okay, we need somebody 3 days in Tokyo. Okay, is Mac available? You're their first call. If you are, then that's another 3 days of business for you. So then on top of that, a little bit of social media. It was really annoying. I actually invest a lot of time in social media, and every time in 2017, 18, and 19, just when I thought, why the hell am I wasting time on this Instagram nonsense, somebody would find me through Instagram. And I'd be like, I'm trying not to swear, which is my natural tendency to do in a situation like this. I would go, oh no, I guess this may be working. And then, of course, nothing would happen again. And then you would get a booking, and then you'd be like, okay, I get this much revenue from the booking. Is it worth the time I've invested in Instagram? So I don't know. Anyway, and then search engine optimization from the website. So one of the things I did commit to when I started Maction Planet was trying to be everywhere, as it were. So there's an active blog, there's a YouTube channel, there's even a radio show. If you go to Mixcloud, mixcloud.com/MactionPlanet, there is a radio show which actually is hosted by my good friend and music expert, Royce Leong. I sometimes do solo episodes, and we used to co-host in the early days. And so, there's even that where people can potentially find you. Also, these provide an ecosystem. So to actually tie this back into Maya's question as well, these provide an ecosystem for the after service. So, if they've had a good time with you and they think you're great and they miss you, then they can go online, and there are hundreds of hours of, Maction entertainment of me visiting a festival, going to a rugby match, doing this, doing that. And so they can kind of relive their Japan experience through that as well. So, Yuka, I hope that answers your question.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Beautifully. And I can tell, I mean, so the personal referral comes with the trust. So, I think that's probably the best. I will go with that venue. But then the second question I have, because, okay, you said you provide the premium service, so you can command the premium pricing, which I think it should be that way. People tend to equate quality of the services with the pricing. But then let's say I'm going to use myself as an example because I know myself, right? So let's say I want to go to India. And the only reason I want to go to India is to visit Taj Mahal. That's the only thing I want to do. I haven't been able to do that. Now, so I know what I want. I know what kind of time I have to spare. So I'm not on your target market. Is because I probably only need the guide to go through the Taj Mahal. Well, what do you think? I don't know what the Taj Mahal in Japan, but anyway, I hope I can I'm making myself clear.
No, you're making yourself very clear, and again, it's another excellent question because I think it touches on. I literally remember drawing this chart in early January 2017, which had the word guide in the middle and then some arrows coming out of it, right? And and then trying to think what are the aspects of being a guide? What are these different kind of discrete but overlapping areas that people pay for? And then so some of them pay for literally just the organization of the logistics, right? Or at least that's one aspect. Let's just call it an aspect, what I mean? Part of being a guide is so that people don't have to worry that this whiskey bar opens at this time, right? And this restaurant opens at this time, and how to fit those in logistically, or this as you know, right? So a lot of restaurants in Japan, I guess, going back to dare I say it again, ramen. Some of them have these very strange opening hours where they only open for an hour and a half on lunchtime for 3 days a week, but then they have a gap, and then they do open for dinner on another 3 days of the week, and then they also, if the soup runs out, then they're done. So you to the outside world, it's that you think, they're open till 1:40, I can turn up at 1:30, but no, this is a popular shop, then it's going to be done, right? So some people pay for that logistics, and that's enough, right? Some people even are happy, I kind of, I get booked sometimes for shopping tours, especially either directly or through some of kind of the high end, more concierge type services that I work with. And I'm not joking, Yuka, you're often just essentially carrying people's bags and doing my best to offer that value add, which I really want to do, by telling them who the architect of the Hermes store in Ginza that we're in, right? And trying to talk a bit about, what this is a high end, this is some Gucci, right? But you can see here that they've had some influence from this Edo era design motif, right? So, then there's that, and then there's knowledge, right? So some people, they want knowledge. We want a guide who, has credibility because they're going to be able to give us more information about this place. They're going to be able to tell us those stories. They're going to be able to engage our children in a way that, Google Assistant or Siri won't be able to do if we ask them to read out this Wikipedia article. So there's that. People want to hire you because, they've read that where the so-called, dare I say it again, the secret spots are, be it bars or restaurants, and so on and so on. So, Yuka, really is up to you, and it's up to your budget as well. If but what you've just described is kind of a bipolar situation or a barbell situation where you've just told me, given your criteria, there are some situations where I'd go, I don't need a guide for that at all, because it's I know very specifically I only have this limited amount of time. But that also sometimes encourages me to think, no, I only have this amount of time, and I absolutely want to maximize it to the full. So it just depends on what your inclination is and your budget is. But I don't know. I mean, I think guides are relatively cheap in India, and it's such an important place. I've been to the Taj Mahal, and I must say that, just having the guide there to tell me, the information, some of the amazing stories, also knew how to bypass some of the queues that develop around the site here and there, and also where the best photo spots were. It was worth what I paid.
Okay, interesting. Right. Yeah, you have given me a lot of things to think about. Like you said, exactly. I don't know what I don't know, I guess, and I may find, those things that I didn't think I would need. Maybe I might find them useful. I'm not saying it right, but yeah, thank you.
No, absolutely. I guess that's part of it, right? I mean, again, one of the things that I tried to bring when I set up Action Planet was, I've traveled, I mentioned it before, blah blah blah, over 100 countries, and I've done that, solo, right? I've done that solo. I've done that solo, but part of part of a group tour at times, right? I've done that, I've traveled with my mum and my sisters from back in the UK. I've traveled with friends. I've traveled as a couple. I've traveled, private tours, big group tours, right? So I wanted to bring all of the things that I had learned from each of these experiences, where I've thought, the guy could have done this a bit better. Why didn't we do this on this thing? Oh, it seems strange that we took this route. It didn't seem, it doesn't seem very efficient, right? I tried to bring all of that into Action Planet. So yeah, it is a tough choice. So good luck, and I'm sure whatever you do, you're going to enjoy the Taj Mahal. Absolutely unbelievable building. He wanted to build a matching, like a mirror mausoleum on the other side of the river. When you go to the Taj Mahal, you don't often see it because you only see the photos from the front. But there's actually basically a river on the other side, like the backside, and he wanted to build kind of a black Mahal. Right, so Taj Mahal is white. He wanted to build a black Mahal for him when he died, but then he died quickly, and then I think his son took over, and they were like, "Yeah, we're not wasting money on that." So unfortunately, there is only one Taj Mahal, but that's what makes it all the more special.
Thank you. I'm gonna test my guide, whomever I'm gonna get, about the knowledge. Thank you.
Oh no.
Appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, my pleasure. Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Yuka, and thank you, Mac. So, Tim, do you have any questions to Mac? Or anybody in the audience, in fact, if you have questions, please come up.
Oh, I just, as always, I could listen to Mac forever. I just love the way you think, and there's too much to unpack, but just my thought was, I was smiling listening to you, especially your approach and the niche you were looking for, because I lived in Hawaii for 14 years, and we did the reverse. We hosted Japanese groups, but it was like educational, authentic adventures. So it could be groups for hula, and we were hooking them up with local kumu hulas who would teach them authentic, hula, not what you would see, for example, in Oahu, which is for the tourists, but it was actually paying homage to Pele, the volcano goddess, right?
Right.
Or we'd hook them up with other local kumus, because as everybody knows, Japanese are crazy about Hawaii and Hawaiian culture. So we'd hook them up with these, they're local Hawaiian storytellers. And I mean, they have a very powerful, lovely storytelling tradition. And I learned a lot, not only about, these different places, but how they thought. And what they did was they tied their stories to the place. And they said, through storytelling, you create a sense of place. So now you've added meaning to the place, right?
Right.
And this was, to us, these were the kind of experiences that we wanted them to have. And then we would have parties at our house and a band and make it, invite all the locals. So it was the same kind of way of thinking, is like educational adventures, right? And I kind of feel like a big part of your brand is your ability to communicate through storytelling. And of course, your enthusiasm is part of that. And in a sense, I feel like you also are creating a sense of place where it sticks. It's more meaningful to the people who experience it because of the stories you tell. Is that a fair assessment?
I think sometimes it takes people to articulate what you're doing better than you can yourself. So I've actually, as you've been talking, I've been thinking, maybe I have definitely tried to do that. And so, you've given everybody a little peek behind the curtain. I guess, we all bring, when there's any kind of people business, right, or people facing business, you bring a huge amount to every interaction from your past experience. So, one of the things I do, I mean, I'm trying to pay my rent. So I need to persuade people that I'm a good choice to trust with their time and their resources. And, one of the things I often lead with, or I try to make front and center of my brand, is that I have traveled to a lot of parts of the world. And that means invariably, given where my guests are coming from, that I've probably been to your city. And, and so I have that connection. I understand a bit about where you come from. I probably speak some of the languages that you speak as well, and so I can make those connections, so it's not just about telling a story about this particular Tokugawa shogun, this particular samurai, this particular Buddhist priest, but then you're thinking, okay, these guys come from potentially, say, a Muslim background. Okay, well, here are some connections, in the thinking, right? And that comes from actually not just having the knowledge of what you need to guide on the ground here, but also having a pretty deep knowledge of Islam, Christianity, Judaism, indigenous cultures and their belief systems around the world. And like I say, trying to work all of that in to make the story not just entertaining and engaging and educational, but individual. The way that I will describe what's going on at, Meiji Jingu, as one example, is going to be different for people. Just the simple fact that as you walk through, for example, on one side you have the wine barrels, on the other side you have the Nihonshu barrels, well, given on where people are coming from and what their past experiences are, or even their interest in alcohol, means that I'm going to be drawing out different aspects of these stories for people. So, it is a very, very important part, I think, of guiding and general hospitality overall.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add, thank you for that answer. That you made sense. But to me, all those things you said are important. But I think the story, whether it's unique, like you said, you want to make it a unique story. You want it to be memorable. Stories are what's memorable to people, I believe, right? That's what kind of sticks in their heads, right? But yeah, thank you. Anyway, thank you so much, man. I can't wait to talk again. I got a lot of questions and things I'd like to ask you. But thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for coming, man. It was Wednesday, so some people actually showed up. So I'm very grateful.
Yes, thank you for making me the prototype for this shift. But I'm very pleased to see we have been joined by a lot of people. So I always appreciate that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Mark. And yes, this is a topic that we can talk about a lot. And I'm sure that there will be future rooms in which we can talk about this. So thank you very much, Mike and Yuka, Tim, and everybody who came to the room on Wednesday, who followed us. So with this, I wish you a great day and a successful remainder of the week. And we're looking forward to having you again next Wednesday at 8 o'clock again. Thank you. See you then.
Thank you very much. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for coming and staying with us today. We will be on air next week on Thursday at 8 a.m. Japan time again, so join us. Until then, you can find us at JapanExpertInsights.com and our YouTube channel, where we upload all the conversations on Japanese politics, business insights, and the role of Japan in the Indo-Pacific region. If you want to stay informed about our upcoming events, you can follow us on Clubhouse, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Again, we're looking forward to your joining us next week. Until then, stay well and make the best of the day. See you.